All right, folks, welcome back to the Property Couch podcast. And today is an awesome episode, Ben. I can't wait to share it. I'm super excited to help people set themselves up for what will be an incredible 2023. But why is that, Ben?
Mate, what we're about to release today is transformational. You are never going to look at your money in the same light again with these new financial tools that we're going to teach everyone about.
Ooh, never going to see it in the same light again, folks. Let's get into the show.
Welcome to the Property Couch, where each week you get to listen to two of Australia's leading experts. Bryce Holdaway, co-host of Location Australia on Foxtel's Lifestyle Channel, co-host of Escape from the City on the ABC, and partner of Empower Wealth Advisory. Ben Kingsley, chair of Property Investors Council of Australia and the founder of Empower Wealth Advisory, named the 2018 and 2019 Property Advisory Firm of the Year. Stay tuned as they bring you the insider's guide to property, finance and money management.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Property Couch podcast. Welcome back to you, Ben. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, mate. Well, happy, after the summer series, we've wished everyone a happy new year, but it does feel like the start of the next phase of the pod for this year. So, yeah, welcome back.
Well, I just had a bucket list summer with my family, mate. So it's nice to be back in the saddle with you here on the podcast. But that summer series is now something that we have done for a number of years. We've enjoyed it, but we hope our community's really enjoyed hearing some of the stories, because I think what it highlights is the fact that we've all got this destination that we want to arrive at, which is lifestyle design, but we all start from different places. And if for anyone who thinks that you need to start from a privileged place, I think you'll see from some of the podcasts that we've just shown over the summer series, Ben, that you do not have to have a silver spoon in your mouth. You do not have to have everything going your way. All you need to do is have some tenacity and the ability to take action, and you can end up with lifestyle by design.
Yeah, I think, obviously we are passionate about our community moving through that lifestyle by design and achieving financial peace. And we understand that some people start from different positions. We heard about it right through the summer series. So there really is no excuse for anyone in the community to not be conscious of their opportunity and potentially conscious of what they need to do that. So I'm really excited about today's show in that respect, Bryce, because that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to sort of unpack what have we observed as part of, the years that we've been doing summer series, and even we threw in there one winter series as well, but also what I get to observe and what you get to observe in the work that we do in our own business, week in, week out, and, literally the hundreds and thousands of people that we get to talk to, and we see patterns. We see patterns in how that story works. So I'm super excited about today's show in terms of unpacking that. And of course, we've got some exciting news at the end, which I promised everyone a couple of times throughout last year. We've got some awesome stuff coming. So I can't wait to talk about that.
We do. We have some exciting stuff, so stick around for that, folks. Today, we really want to lay some track for the rest of the year for financial 23. So next week, we're going to do our property market outlook for 2023. So you and I are going to riff around that. So make sure you stick around for that next week. But today's really about going, okay, well, let's make sure the house is built on a foundation of stone or a foundation of sand around money management, because a couple of things. Our Moorr app download is going super well since we launched that late last year, Ben. So I want to encourage people to get on board. But we are now coming to you on the 2nd of February, which means that the gym car parks were super full in January, Ben. But the real test is the car park full in February? Because quite often all of that news resolution, the excitement that you have around turning the corner for the new year and shaking off the previous year, all peaks in January. But we really want to use that as an analogy for money management, because quite often you've had it's been a fun time leading up to the long weekend in late January. But now is where it really matters. You're starting to see credit card statements for what you've done over the holiday period. You're starting to see, for a lot of people who've been on holidays, hopefully they've been on holidays using their own money, Ben, not using someone else's money, i.e. the banks. But it's now where it really makes a difference, because in the shadows of a wonderful summer series, those people had to make crucial decisions at crucial times in the year. And so we really want to set today up as being February is really the perfect space for people to go, right, all right. If I'm serious about ending up on the summer series at the end of this year, or even not that bad, if I'm serious just about making positive change for myself and my family and my loved ones, it really comes down to getting some of this stuff right that we're going to talk about today. So stick around. Before we get there, I want to go through our mindset minute, Ben. So I'm going to build some context for this. Stiggy and our team of Stiggies late last year made a decision, a very good decision, to move the podcast host that we were using, Ben, that we'd used for some time, that we had outgrown, and we used another one. Now, as you know, Ben, you've been in testing environments a lot over the last 18 months. You get super nervous when you make changes like that because it's big. And so what happened is when we made that change, we had and again, a shout out to our team of Stigs here, we had a glitch where on Spotify, you couldn't get access to our catalog. And that put us into a state of stress for a good 12 hours or so. So I'm going to read something out which has context, but you need to know that backstory for it to all make sense. So this is someone who's anonymous, who's written into us, Ben. I'm just going to read it out. So hang in there because there's a few things for you and I to unpack on this that I think will benefit our community. Hey team, I'm pretty sure you'll be receiving a number of messages about yesterday's Spotify issue in the coming days. I'm not sure I represent the entire newbie community when I tell you it feels like my property investment journey just came crashing down around me before it even began. But I'm pretty sure I speak for all of us when I beg you to exhaust all avenues in investigating how your listeners can recover the TPC episodes we've saved to our playlists and also our TPC listing history in Spotify. So Ben, footnote, thankfully that's been resolved, but at the time there was some anxiety. Last week, Spotify Wrap told me that I'd listened to 19,749 minutes of the Property Couch in the 4.5 months I've been following you. When I just now discovered your podcast was back online, but my best of the best investing playlist now contains 0 minutes of gold, my stomach absolutely flipped that I could not choke back every tear despite my best efforts. To make things worse, there's no history to tell me which of your 300 plus episodes I've already heard. And so that little voice has returned to tell me that superannuation and ETFs are better suited to my personality anyway. Interesting conclusion, but I had been liquid to the tune of $1 million for 6 years, but I'm that perfectionist procrastinator who needs to put in 110% of research and make every comparison in the book, in brackets, after reading and sticky noting my way through 3 books and typing out a summary of all of them, close brackets, before I can lift a finger to write out a dozen pages of bullet point questions to ask. Woof, that's thorough, Ben.
Absolutely.
And much to my detriment, I have major trust issues seeking advice from professionals once I'm armed with such a list. I know that despite my prowess with saving money, which is, if you can save that amount of money, Ben, that is prowess.
That's phenomenal.
I've not only been swimming against the tide all these years, but I've also been going backward exponentially thanks to opportunity cost, which is a result of procrastination mingled with horrific time management skills. In brackets, I buy the books, I subscribe to the program, I sign up for the platform, but I don't make a start. If anyone's listening to this, can you relate to that?
Yeah.
I discovered your podcast in the nick of time. In fact, just days after being seduced by $1 million off the plan apartment I visited halfway across the country. Granted, I wanted to buy the lifestyle for myself and had not at that point contemplated a future of lifestyle by design involving multiple properties. Yet here I am, just months later, on the threshold of a new life in a new state, a single self-funded mum, not having worked a day in 11 years, with a very vague picture of my property investing future. And though I should have consulted with a professional to help me build a plan before now, in brackets, I'll do it after my tax return is done. I'll do it after I renew my will and power of attorney. I'll do it after I settle in the new city and actually have a job. Insert another procrastination point. Knowing I had those podcasts in the bank ready to formulate my questions around and inspire my new pathways as I continue along the journey was all the fuel I needed to propel me forward. The podcast was the secret sauce. And so, in summary, if nothing, I'm not a rambler. Yesterday, I had momentum and I felt empowered. Today, I just want you to tell me to set and forget in passive stocks, and I can go back to spending my Spotify minutes listening to politically incorrect, loud and angry head-banging music. We appreciate all you do, Anonymous. There's a bit in that, Ben.
Oh, there's heaps in that. Heaps. There's heaps of psychology in that. Oh my God.
Yes.
Can I just start with the first bit of psychology? That $1 million provides extreme comfort to a single mother.
Yes.
And Australia hasn't had experiences of run-on banks. So that is really the anchor, the mooring line that this person's attached to. And so you can understand that when you're a sole provider for a child or something like that, and for those in our communities in that space, it is not easy. We get it. And you then factor in not actually working at this moment in time or whatever, and potentially maybe re-entering the workforce. All of those come with high levels of anxiety. So it's perfectly reasonable for this person to anchor back to that mooring line and stay there. The challenge is, as she rightly points out, that there's been a massive amount of opportunity cost lost. That $1 million potentially could have been, $1.5 million, or even 2 million if we may have acted, 5 or 6 years ago. So that's always the trade-offs and the compromises that we need to look at when we're doing this type of stuff. And usually it's an educational journey that we need to go on that builds up that confidence. And she is still in that, I need to have precision. Well, unfortunately, any investment carries risk. It does not carry precision. There are black swan events. There are other events that can occur in the short term that can severely dent any wealth creation aspirations.
What I love about this, Ben, is just the absolute raw authenticity of what's going on here. It's like you had this opportunity to just be inside this person's mind as they were thinking and put the fingers to the keyboard, because hopefully what we have had a small part in doing, Ben, is we ask the same question. If you've listened to the summer series, the opening question is the same. Tell us what money was like when you were growing up, because we're trying to start people having conversations around money, difficult ones, easy ones, moderate ones. We want you to be having conversations. And this is a very raw example of this is what's going on inside people's heads. But quite often people don't get to have these conversations. You could be walking with someone at school drop-off or down at the footy club or wherever you mingle. If you're on a ride with someone in a peloton, there is someone next to you who's going through stuff that you don't know unless they're having conversations with you. So that is something that I'm super encouraged by this person doing it. We've kept the person's name anonymous because the idea is to just let people know a couple of things, right? We all get demons to get started, right? So the summer series just showed us that people have aspiration, but from different starting points. So it's the end game that's really important. So we all have the stories and beliefs and experience that whisper in our ear to make us keep status quo. But we all need to overcome these to take action. Here's an important thing that I've learned over the journey, Ben, is the quicker that you can get an internal locus of control rather than an external locus of control, meaning you'll notice littered through that sort of conversation, well, that sort of thought process or thought bubble was all of these external events that were triggering an internal response. The quicker we can create our own compass internally to make decisions based on how we're feeling, not if the government changes or when my power of attorney is written or when I have insert whatever the procrastination is, the quicker we can go. The difference between people who are successful and not are generally the people that are taking action. The quicker we can find internal resources for ourselves to find reasons to take action rather than something happening to the government or the tax regimes, or what happens, if stamp duty is passed on, land tax is passed on through all those sorts of things that are going to continue to pop up. That is the challenge. So that is the biggest takeaway for me from this. Lots of external triggers for acting or not. So for me, the mindset in it today is to develop that internal trigger on what it takes to get started, not looking for other external events, Ben.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's what's a beautiful segue into what we want to talk about today, which is, the 3 reasons why we don't see people making big strides when it comes to building foundations on stone rather than sand. And they're going to be interesting ones. Some, we're a non-judgment podcast for what's happened in the past, right? But effectively what we aren't is at some point, something's got to change. And you'll be interested in terms of the third example that we're going to talk about today, is there's some eyeballing stuff, because there's a bit of, there's a few people out there whose confidence is really high. So I think, for me, that's a nice little storyboard in terms of what we're trying to achieve here.
Yeah. So setting up today's chat, like we're of the view that most households are challenged money managers and wealth builders, whether they know it or not. And the important point here, Ben, is most people don't know that they've got a problem. Most people don't know whether or not they're a good manager or not. So we're gonna share some tools today that help people within a framework get a better understanding of why the households aren't great money managers, and what they can actually do about it.
Yeah, it's all about making your money work harder for you. We talk about leaving money on the table. We've got a couple of series already in the Moorr platform around not leaving money on the table in terms of how you can identify that. Look at the economic climate that we're in. We're going to see, unemployment rise. We're going to see the economy slow down. That's a manufactured slowdown. So this is about setting up for success in 2023 in terms of how we're going to do that. But we've got to listen to the story first, see the framework, and then we've got some solutions for you in terms of how we're going to pull that together.
All right, so today we're going to share some new financial tools that will hopefully achieve three things by the end of this episode, Ben. So the first one is it will help you simplify your money and wealth into an unforgettable indicator. That's an important point for us to circle back to later. Number two, it'll make you either problem or opportunity aware. Some people have a problem, some people have an opportunity. It'll help you understand which of those you are. So it'll guarantee that that you can actually do more. Make sure that there's no lazy money or money on the table. And number three, it'll give you an opportunity to showcase excellence. So in both money and wealth building, that separates the best from the rest. And money can be mysterious and money can be confusing. We're going to break down some of that today so that you can actually have a genuine conversation around, if you think that you're okay with money, that is subjective. We're actually going to give you an objective way to identify whether you're good with money or not. Because subjectively, that's very difficult to measure. Objectively, there is a way for you to line up and also have a peer over the fence to see how you're tracking with someone else.
And these are next generational insight tools, Bryce. So we're not talking about traditional tools. This is stuff you've never heard of before. And I'm actually going to put a proposition out there that if you've never heard of this before, once you've heard about it, it'll make you look at money in a different way. So that's the exciting piece for us, because ultimately, what are we trying to do? We're trying to connect with behavioral change and helping you take action. So do we want to start with the first one, Bryce?
Yeah, well, we want to explain why most households are challenged money managers, and there's three. So should we go through the three, or we just reveal them one at a time, Ben?
One at a time. I think let's go one, because there's only three, let's go one at a time.
Okay, mate. So the first one is conditioned behavior. So it's people that are impacted by past history, Ben.
It's really understandable. We hear it on the podcast and we say, how was money growing up like for you? You see it in examples. Oh, we never talked about it. It was taboo. We never had a lot. So I had to create my own money behaviors, but I also had a lot of, connection to that old story in there. And then we hear about other people who are like, actually was really good. Dad told us about shares and mum told us about this and how they manage a budget. And you hear the confidence in their voice around that. So the point being is that we do have predisposition, in terms of what that looks like. And in some cases, we've grown up with, our family spending too much and not having a lot and renting for their entire lives. They're obviously sad case stories, but we also have, that sort of concept of how we see what our parents are doing, and so we just replicate it. So that's that monkey see, monkey do story. And that creates the negative beliefs, doesn't it, Bryce?
Yeah, it does. So you have, I think this is the biggest one for people, because for a while there, when I wasn't less mature in my thinking around this, I was getting frustrated by seeing someone build a plan, execute on the first part of the plan, and then derail. And it's like, why are you derailing? It's keep doing what you're doing, pay off your home. You bought the first investment property. All you need to do is buy another two, combine that with your super, and you're fine. The track is laid. Why are you derailing? So then as your thinking and your observations and your experiences mature, you start to see that underlying the core beliefs that people have are usually the things that derail them. So two people growing up exactly side by side, similar street, similar circumstance, similar school, can have very different paths based on what they heard over the dinner table. So for example, if you have a money belief that says money is dirty or money is evil, that will derail you no matter how, as soon as you start to get the sense of getting ahead, there will be something subconsciously that pulls you back. Or even if it's not money related, if you think you're not worthy, if you think, I'll tell you one of the core beliefs that I had to overcome, Ben, is we were a battler family. Our family was battlers. We talked about the fact that we're battlers, right? So therefore, when you get ahead early days, I had to see that one popping up for me. Hang on, we're battlers though. So I had to overcome that. And then of course, if you are a perfectionist, that will undo a lot of things. So, you know, in terms of this conditioned behavior affected by past history, you talked about the monkey see, monkey do. We observe what others do. Quite often we observe what our family tree does based on their own core beliefs around money that they picked up from their family tree. And it kind of makes sense that we get that as well. So we really need to pay attention to that, because that will derail a lot. And the third part of this is we've said it a number of times, even in our interview way back at episode 200 with Paul Clitheroe. If you live beyond your means, if you spend more than you earn, that will put you into a world of pain. That will put you into a world of pain. So there's a few things there around past history that makes you one of the reasons why you could be a challenged money manager or wealth builder, Ben.
Yeah, it's all about the narrative and the internal thinking that you're having. So Jamin Fraser has, you know, basically story state strategy as a framework. It's an excellent framework because not only is Bryce talking about, say, the neighbours in terms of what was discussed at their dinner table, but even you know, siblings of the one family. 100%. You know, this is the reason why, you know, my dad was an alcoholic, that's why I'm an alcoholic, and this is the reason why I don't drink, and I've grown up in the same family. So it really is ultimately what we're talking about here is that conditioned behavior can be overcome. And so we're going to talk more about how we start to break those things down, you know, when we go into solution mode later on in the pod. But that's a good starting point. So let's move to number 2 now. And this one is around a knowledge shortfall. So we think about conditional behavior. Okay, you know, that's a knowledge thing or a lack thereof, but that's also what we're building on. So now we go external and we start to think about, how much knowledge do I have about this subject matter? Can I improve that knowledge? And when I have that knowledge, how do I go about putting that knowledge into empowered action? Right. So we talk about knowledge is empowering, but only if you act on it. We do believe that you should never invest or never spend your money unwisely if you're not fully informed. But some of that information could still not be perfect, right? Like, you know, all social sciences and the economy is a study of human behavior. In a way, it's never going to be perfect. There are always going to be things that potentially get in the way. But it's just important that you know that once you have that knowledge, that you think about organizing that idea in your head, because initially it's difficult to organize. So you want to be able to be thinking about how you organize that into clear thinking. And then obviously from there, you can build confidence to then take action.
Yeah, the next part of that knowledge shortfall is then, okay, well, if you do get to be organized, well, it's actually difficult to plan then, because forward planning it's actually really quite difficult if you don't have a tool to help you with everything that you're going to be navigating, right? What's the decision? How much would it be? The time value of money, right? So it's difficult to plan, but it's also if you can't visualize, if you don't have any positive reinforcements around you, it's very difficult to visualize what those short, medium, and long-term goals actually need to be. And then how do you prioritize those so you get those sequencing right so you can actually get what you want them to be? So that planning piece does contribute a lot to that knowledge shortfall. And to be honest, fair enough, there's a fair bit in that that needs to be required, but it is a market that people need to understand as to, I do need to understand how I can get in touch with that, how I can get those sequencing so that I can actually get to where I want to go.
Bryce, this is why we talk about making the invisible visible. This is why we talk about I can't be what I can't see. Because when you can see it, when you do organize it, you find the time, you effort, you get everything in place, and then you plan to become what you plan to become. there is this confidence lift that is so noticeable when you actually sit down as a professional advisor and I take people through their goal setting exercises, and then I take people through their possibility and the visibility on that possibility. Man, is that empowering. Does that move the dial in terms of helping people understand what's possible and where their opportunity persists and exists? So that is a good one, right? But then you get on the other side of it, don't you, around managing it?
Yeah, well, it's difficult. So there's so many moving parts, and we're making decisions at a point of sale register that is not necessarily connected to a spreadsheet, or we don't have an opportunity to have visibility on how much have we put aside for the month, the quarter, the half year, the year. So unless you do have a system to manage that, I think it's difficult. So you've got difficult to organize, difficult to plan, difficult to manage. And then the last one to round out this point is it's difficult to comprehend and bring it all together. If you start anything, I think it's really important that you know what done looks like. If you don't know what done, if you don't know what the finish line looks like, it's very difficult to keep making those steps forward into essentially taking a long walk off a short plank, or walking from light into dark. If you actually don't see what you're going towards, that's very difficult for a lot of people. And then it begs the question, who teaches this anyway? And so you go, all right, parents. Well, we just talked about parents. If you're blessed with parents somewhere in your family tree to teach you, great, but quite often that's not the case. And then the schools. I've had to think about schools over the summer, Ben, and I'm going to dance with the devil here because I want to make sure I don't upset any teachers. But teachers are wonderful at teaching. They've learnt the art of how to teach, right? They've gone to, quite often they've gone to tertiary education to learn how to teach. They do a wonderful job with our children and making sure they get through the curriculum that's been set. But a bigger question above that is, what is the curriculum that they are teaching? And so they are wonderful at rolling out the framework for the teaching. But unless there is a budget framework, or unless they've been taught themselves, unless they come with those skills that they can then implement the teaching frameworks that they know so well, it kind of makes sense that your kids aren't getting a budget taught to them at school. It kind of makes sense that they're not understanding how to trap some surplus. Because if the teacher hasn't got those skills, those subject matter concepts, well, no matter how great a teacher they are, if they don't have the concepts, they can't implement the frameworks that they're so great at. So I said to you, I want to go on that gently, because I do not want to offend teachers, because they do an amazing job. But when you think about what they do, it's further upstream where you make the decisions about what they're teaching. When it flows through to him, they do a wonderful job of implementing it. But who's actually going to teach us how to bring all this together if it's fundamental, but it's not being taught in the early part of our childhood?
I can't remember in episode 20 whether it was in the actual recording or whether we filmed this off camera with Paul Clitheroe, and I don't know, the name of the association or whatever it was. I think it was the Financial Literacy Council or something like that. So he said on that council, I think he's got Effie on that board now as well. Yeah. And he did say it's like the curriculum is so full that it's so difficult to actually push something off the curriculum to try and get it in there. So we've got to go with the view that it's probably unlikely that it's ever going to be taught in schools. And so it's, relying on people like us who have lived a long journey and we have lived experience around this, but we're also coaching it and educating to it over time. That sort of helps with that. And obviously we've written books on it. So that's one part of it. The other part is also the jargon, all of these terms and references. We've spent over 400 episodes in terms of talking about economy, talking about all the moving parts. And, next week we're going to take a deeper dive into the outlook. And there's all these cross currents that are not making, the water clear to sail on for this year in terms of the markets. So all those things are real. So you can also understand why people want to tap out. It's all like, well, I don't know, it's just too difficult. So because there's too many moving parts, there's too much, sort of comprehension knowledge that I'm just not interested in. I just want something that keeps it simple and makes it easy for me to understand and go forward. And hopefully again, that's a nice little segue into later in the pod in terms of how we showcase that.
Well, from the primal days, we learned how to survive and thrive. So the way that we survive is all the information that's coming to us, we have to decipher very quickly what's important and what's not. Otherwise, we'll burn too many calories actually trying to digest it. And then the way we thrive is to focus on what we need to put our energies into. So it kind of makes sense that all this stuff's coming at us. It kind of makes sense that we have to filter it in a way that allows us to survive and thrive. So we will give people a way to do that quicker shortly. So the 3 reasons: the first one was conditioned behavior, the second one was knowledge shortfall, the third one, Ben.
This one gets a little bit controversial, but I am steadfast. This is from years of experience, Bryce.
Yeah.
So I am going after this one.
Yeah.
So sit back in your seats, or if you're running or you're pushing weights, here I go.
Yeah.
And because for me, this is the biggest reason for the people who have the income who don't actually achieve financial peace. And it is overconfidence when it comes to money management. Paul Clitheroe and the team, the federal government, did a survey back in 2009. I've referenced it before, but I keep going there. And it was basically a self-assessment reference. And it says, are you good money managers? And something like 93% of people said, oh yeah, totally. I got this. Like, don't tell me how to manage my money. I'm solvent. I know what I'm doing. Well, I can also show you a chart that I saw yesterday, Bryce, from Macquarie Bank about household savings. Guess what, people? We are spenders. We are definitely not savers. So all of those, $98 billion of money that was pumped into the economy, guess what? We are completely back to where we were at 6% savings ratios. So we got that up to 23.5%. And now we're back down to 6. So sure, we all got locked up for a while, so we've been on a spending spree. But here is my point. Most people are overconfident when they think that they've got this. And they think, oh, I'll be right. I'll be able to get us to a comfortable retirement. I can navigate those waters. The reality is that, because the stats show us that only, 5% of people retire completely financially independent with no worries of money. That's significantly wealthy. Then you've got another pool of people, about 15, 20%, thanks to super. Make no mistake, forced savings, government entrust you with your own money, because ultimately, from a behavioural point of view, we attempted too early. We don't have delayed gratification. We're not looking over that fence. So this, for me, is the biggest one possible. And this is where I'm going to go to town when we start talking about the tools that we've introduced, these new next generation insight tools. They're going to really focus on this, because when you talk about objectively versus subjectively, it's right in front of you. So if you think you're good, you're going to be tested and quizzed on the new tool that we're going to show you shortly.
Well, Ben, I think it's like, if we give people an opportunity, it's not really their fault, because how do you know what done looks like? I said that earlier. So if someone is, so 2 things. If someone is, to use your point, they're solvent. So at the end of the month, they're in the black, even if it's $10, they're solvent. And secondly, they don't talk to anyone else about it. Well, in reality, then, if you feel like you've got money, you're not running, you can meet your commitments, but your savings is not great, and there's no one else to compare or chat to about it. I would argue that believing you're doing a good job is in the absence of the fact that there's no metric or benchmark for you to actually see if you are actually doing a good job or not. If I'm playing full forward for the mighty Freo Dockers, and I'm a full forward and I keep kicking points, there's a pretty clear metric that I'm off target. Whereas in money management, there's no clear metric for people. They're not having conversations about it, and they're solvent. So I think hopefully what we want to do today is give people at least that objectivity. We talked about it at the intro. The subjectivity is where
past judgment.
The subjectivity is where the danger lives. But if we give them an objective assessment, so because there is a lack of social proof, because no one's sharing, no one's comparing, so therefore you're not aware of any waste or opportunity that you've got to make your money work harder. So in effect, you become blissfully unaware of any future problems. It's a bit like, I'm not a smoker, Ben, so I don't know what it is, but I know that when you talk to smokers, they don't realize that the drag that they're just having now has that accumulative effect over time. So it's very difficult to have a future event around poor health tied to the very decision that I'm making right now. So it's not too dissimilar for that around us for money management. Sure, we know we need some money in retirement. Sure, we know there might be a bit more under the water with that iceberg. We're only seeing the tip, but at this point in time, it's really hard to actually bring that to present time.
Look, and I know, Bryce, in terms of what we're about to share is not going to resonate with probably 30 to 40% of the population, because they won't want to know the answer to these questions that we're going to share. Too confronting for them. They're conditioned into negative beliefs, and ultimately it's a hard conversation they're going to be having with themselves in that discovery. So we know from our community that our community is aspiring Australians. These people absolutely want to make a difference. They're putting the effort in to actually just getting educated in the first instance. So there is an automatic assessment here that's happening for them to sort of say, I want to improve. I want to set targets. I want to achieve goals. I want to achieve financial peace. I want to look after my family. I want to provide. And they understand that there's a pathway to do that. And so that's the audience that we're talking to. But again, coming back to the thousands of consults that I've been involved in, and that all of that process over 20 odd years, there's quite a few of them who are overconfident in terms of, and so when you sit down and have a detailed conversation and I've got a full financial view, I can point out where those negative pieces are. But these new next generation insights we're about to share, you're going to see them yourselves. I think that's the important point, Ben. You get to go, here's where I see some of the areas are. But that, sometimes for people, that's the first time that they even get that as an objective metric or a signpost or in some cases a hurdle along the way anyway. So, I guess you're saying from an experience level of wide vision, thousands of people, most people are at experience of one, maybe two, that they're trying to draw that from. So, and they can do it in their own privacy, right? I mean, if they don't want to share that knowledge, that's true. But what we also know as part of that is there's now going to be these new insights and these new financial tools. So you should be problem aware. And if you don't actually look at these, then you can't sit here and say, well, I'm in denial. Well, you could, because you don't look. And ultimately that's what it's about. So we're sort of saying to our, Property Couch community, this is for you. This is our gift to you in terms of how you can do this, because like anything that we build and we share, it's all free. We believe in abundance. We want to get it out there to you, and you will ultimately be able to assess that. So there'll be no more lack of interest and knowledge. There'll be no more lack of awareness in terms of whether I have a problem or whether I have an opportunity or whether I feel good. And from that point of view, there's also no lack of attention to it, because here you are listening to this pod, basically saying, all right, well, what's next? What do I need to do? We're trying to take that confusion and move the dial on the status quo.
Yeah, well, so over time we started, Ben, with how do we fix bad advice? And then we tried to equip people with the basic fundamentals of what you need to look for. And then we introduced money smarts and help people manage their money. And then we introduced the books and all those sorts of things. So this is just really the next step in that evolution that we started some 7+ years ago, to leave a bit of a legacy for people to be better money managers and making better decisions. So let's talk about the solution then, Ben, because there's a couple of things. Our assessment from those three problems are there's either a lack of interest or denial. There is a lack of understanding, maybe a lack of awareness in terms of what problem, I'm good, or a lack of attention. So that's the assessment from those questions. So the conclusion for status quo, i.e. changing nothing, is, lack of action. Knowledge is empowering, but only if you act on it. I don't know if you know about that one. And huge missed opportunity because time waits for no one. So I guess the question is, how do you fix it and what's the solution?
Yeah, so I mean, look, we've got a money management system. For those who are new to the pod, it's called Money Smarts. It's a rules-based money management system, and it helps you organize and get in control of your money. And it talks about planning a 12-month target where you're trying to achieve that surplus. And it's basically less than 10 minutes a month to run, and it's completely free and available inside the Moorr platform. And you can download the Moorr app as part of that. So that's number one. But what we want to fix here is more broader than that, because obviously that's good foundation. Cash flow is the foundation. But now we're starting to talk about the next evolution, which is wealth building and the time. Again, time waits for no one. So it really is about thinking about those solutions and how we fix them. And you want to embed that into solving for the problems that we just talked about, which is conditional behavior. It's talking about, the knowledge shortfall, conditioned behavior, I should say, knowledge shortfall, and this overconfidence that we are also seeing. So here's where we get to share some of these brand new next generation tools, Bryce, in terms of what we're trying to solve for.
And the reason these tools exist is because of one question that you and one of our other business partners had is, how do you help people with the problem that they don't know they have? That's the fundamental core question that keeps resonating in your mind around, that is a good point. How do we help people with the problem that they don't yet know that they have? So that's the context. So first one, Ben, I know you've been excited to share this.
Yeah, so, exactly the point. I mean, Michael Pope and I spent basically years doing this, and we've been waiting a decade to pull all this together, and now we're in a position to actually share this, because it is fascinating about people's behavior in terms of how they lock in and engage on an idea. That's the aspiring people. And then those people who are problem aware but potentially turn away and put their head in the sand. Well, there's no reason to do that anymore, because we've developed a new tool, which is called WealthSPEED. Now, WealthSPEED is a tool. It's the only financial tool that you absolutely need to think about. Like, if you think about all of the other instruments and insights and everything like you're getting, if you wanted to sum that up into one perfect instrument, this is it. It's called WealthSPEED. And it effectively measures your income, your expenditure, your assets and your liabilities. It ingests all of that data and provides you with an hourly rate in which your speed of wealth is growing. So, if you're confident about how quickly your wealth is building, we take a future problem and we bring it into present context. That's
beautiful. We've got to pause on that. You take a future problem and you bring it into present context. That becomes the objective measure, Ben, on whether I'm good or not, because you can work out if your wealth speed is actually enough to get you to where you want to go. So think of this. Think of it as a speedo in the car, right? So let's say I want to get from Melbourne to Sydney, or I've just driven from Perth to Adelaide to Melbourne, Ben. So let's just say I want to go from Perth to Adelaide. I plot out the destination, so Perth, Adelaide, and the time frame, and there is a certain speed that I need to average along that journey to actually arrive in Adelaide or Melbourne to get back home in the time that I've allotted. If I go under the speed, I won't make it. If I go over the speed, I'll definitely make it, but I put myself into a bunch of risky behaviors. But if I set it at the speed that I need it to be and I maintain that speed, I will actually arrive at the point. I'll start in A and I'll arrive in B. It's exactly the same for people with their lifestyle design. And that's, I guess, what WealthSPEED does. It allows you to see a whole bunch of financial data in one gauge, because a lot of people don't like the complexity, Ben. Some people will want to look under the bonnet and know but some people just want to know that speed. If I maintain 80 kilometers an hour for this amount of days, I will get there. If I maintain this wealth speed per hour for the amount of time that's allotted, I'll get there. So we just got to pause on that because it's powerful.
Oh, it's super powerful. It's super cool. Once you see it, as I said to you, I promised earlier, once you actually see it for the first time, you're going to go, oh, wow. And then you see all of the sub gauges that make it all up. It's like, actually, I'm probably not going to look at my money in the same way as I've looked at it in the past. I've got this analogy, Bryce, where you're jumping into the wealth creation car.
Yeah.
You're looking at the horizon, and you can see on the horizon is financial peace. Yeah. And the reality is this: the quicker you make your wealth speed go, the quicker you get to your destination. Now, that's also about sort of looking at your behaviors of delayed gratification versus spending now, because ultimately now every decision has an impact on the future. And what you were saying before about the smoker, drawing in that smoke, it's very hard for them to see in that one little moment that's making, their health over a long period of time deteriorate. This is exactly the same sort of concepts. The reason why we came up with this next generation financial tool is to basically say, if that's the problem in the future, if you need to get there and you want to get there quicker, then you've got to make some compromises, some trade-offs, some sacrifice. You need to make your money work harder for you. And so that is what's so super cool about the WealthSPEED new financial tool that we're releasing today.
So it's a new barbecue topic, Ben. So most people will go to the barbecue topic if they're talking about this sort of stuff. Generally, the question is, how many properties do you own? Scrap that. That is not the question to ask anymore, because all you need to do is ask them, what's your WealthSPEED?
Yep. What's your WealthSPEED?
What's my WealthSPEED? And it doesn't need to say I've got 7 properties, I'm worth 2.3 million, whatever. You just go, well, I'm at $14 an hour and you're at $18 an hour. Okay. All right. So it just shows that you're running at a faster speed than the other, or in some cases, someone might be up at $50 an hour. So that's an important change to the narrative that we're hoping to make here.
Yeah, it is. And coming back to the
speed, rather than how much have you got, how many properties have you got, it's what's your WealthSPEED.
Yeah, and for those people who are aspiring Australians and say, knee deep in university as surgeons and doctors and professionals and so forth, we understand that you won't be judged on a slow WealthSPEED at the start, because as your income starts to flow through, you will be able to build up that speed, and potentially, like in a race, you will be able to overtake other people. So look, this instrument has the power to change behavior. So that's why it was built. But with great power comes great responsibility. And ultimately, it's about your story. This is not about competing and benchmarking, but it is, like, we do want a bit of gamification in there, in the sense that, okay, what should it be running at? That's all going to come. We're in first version release. We've got some exciting releases that are going to come into the platform after this one, about Bryce's point about the gap in terms of how quickly does it need to travel. But the big takeaway for lesson number 1 here today is, how do I make it go faster? So I want to look at my spending speed, which is a sub gauge. I want to look at my net income speed, my saving speed, and my asset speeds. All of those things are going to be part of that story. Now, that's new concepts. You've never heard those words before. So from that point of view, that's why you've got to check it out in terms of what it is. But we aren't done there, Bryce, are we? We've got another new tool that's coming out, which is completely complementary, sits side by side.
Let's give the backstory on this, Ben, because there was something you saw many years ago, off context to what we're talking about, that triggered this thought for you. So I think that backstory is really helpful here.
Yeah, right. So sure. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk about it. So many, many years ago, we did some analysis on managing households for over 2 years. So we signed up these households, about 26 households, and we managed and checked everything they spent for a 2-year period. I think we're going back into 2010, 2011. That was a fascinating experiment for us and also for those people. So we had a group of people who thrived and a group of people who effectively, who had challenging money habits. And if they didn't change those behaviors, ultimately they went, as I said, off the rails that Bryce mentioned earlier. So that led to that. How do we tell people about a problem they don't know we've got? And then what happened is, I set up my portfolio, and we did a session, basically a client night at the Science Works in Spotswood there. And Michael,
context, this is back in 2009,
yeah,
right?
No, I think it's 2010, 2011. It's around that sort of time. Yeah. And so Michael and I were sitting there working with our simulator software and all of that as we were building that out. And so I said, what would be good? Why don't we see if we can put a speed clock on Jane and My's property portfolio as part of that. Now, that inspiration, to your point, Bryce, came from me sitting there late one night. I think I'm trying to think if it was Clive James or someone like that, one of those guys who read the late night news one night. Yeah. So it's about 11:30 one night. I'm sitting there, and they go to a story in America and their debt clock. And I saw their debt clock and I thought, that's powerful. Like, I can learn a lot from looking at that debt clock. And so
Explain the debt clocks. That's what you were saying.
Yeah. So hence, when you go in there, you'll see that WealthSPEED and WealthCLOCK are registered trademarks. We registered those trademarks, but we basically wanted to make sure that the technology and all of that stuff was ready for what we're about to build. And that's the origin story. So ultimately, we've been sitting on this idea for decades. We've now got a platform that allows us to do it freely, because the biggest problem we were thinking about is everyone's going to ring us. We need to have a call center. We'd go broke in terms of that. But now we've got it to a stage where it's effectively automatically calculates, it tracks history. So this is what I've been sort of giving clues about for the last 12, 18 months. This Moorr platform is going to be the only place that you'll need to manage your financial affairs. That's our intent. That's what we're building. So things like storing documents, if you're managing a property portfolio, they're all coming. So don't just think, okay, I get a little bit of a novel insight here. No. This is going to be, once you move across into the Moorr platform, you're going to have all of these wonderful insights in terms of how you're going to be able to, in this case, go faster, get better, look at where the opportunities live as part of that. But it's a good segue into the second new financial tool that we've got there, Bryce.
Well, that was the second. The third one is the WealthTRACKER. So
that all leads us to this whole story around WealthCLOCK.
Yeah.
And what it does is it's basically a car odometer. And so thinking in the same way as the Speedo, it sits, so I get back in the car and I put the petrol in through Money Smarts. So that's how I fuel the car up. And so my speed gauge is effectively, I'm going all out here, Bryce. The speed gauge is Money Stretch. So that's how much fuel I've got in the car. And then ultimately the odometer is the distance that I've traveled and I'm traveling right now. So when you look at your WealthCLOCK, it is going to move your wealth speed every second. So it's clicking over. You've got this beautiful new instrument on the Moorr platform that basically clicks over your WealthCLOCK and you can see it moving in real time. Now, Bryce, there is an important point here. Every time you change your financial data in there, it'll reset both your WealthSPEED and your WealthCLOCK. So that's also an important message for new players. We've been playing around with it for the last week and a bit, kicking the tires on it. It's brand new, but that's ultimately how it's going to work. And it's going to track those changes over time, which hopefully should empower you to sort of see the progress that you're making when it comes to that story.
Nice. So you've got WealthSPEED, which is the Speedo. You've got WealthCLOCK, which is the Odometer. Then you've got WealthTRACKER, which is the third tool. And this is really powerful. So if you think about the analogy we talked about before too, Ben, it shows you where you've been. So if you think about a Google map, here's a feature. This is not my life hack, Ben, but you know when you're driving along, because as you can tell, I've driven 10,130 kilometers and 160 hours in the seat just over this summer. On Google, when you put your destination in, there's a little button on your screen on the CarPlay, bottom left, it's got like a forky arrow. You press that and what it does, it zooms out of the present thing and it goes back to the 30,000 foot view. So it's kind of that. It's where you go, okay, that's where my starting point was. That's where my destination is, and this is where I currently am. So it gives you a sense of where you've been. And that's exactly what this is doing. It's like, well, okay, I know what speed I am. I know how far I've traveled. Now the next bit is where have I been, where am I going? And at different points in time, I can actually see some markers along the way to see what the significant points were every time you update it.
And so this is obviously the first version release that we're looking at. But the next part of that, Bryce, is let's say you do have an old spreadsheet and you have some of that historical data right across the board for your assets, liabilities, income at that time. You'll be able to go in and put those as an as-at date. And you'll be able to build a bit of that backstory, because that is, when you're talking about historical tracking and the wealth tracker, it is measuring, your nest egg and your net worth over time. So be mindful of that. That feature will hopefully be coming in the next couple of months. But at the starting point, or if you've been using Moorr or Money Smarts for several years, as thousands of people have, cool, because all of that old data is going to be in there. And you'll start to see a bit of that history starting to take shape. And again, you'll see yourself climbing that mountain. You'll see that wealth building up over time as well. So it's another, it's a 3-pack feature as part of, these next generation tools that we're building.
And the good thing about these tools too, Ben, is they cater for two groups, right? They cater for the people who just want simple insights. They just want the headline metrics to make sure that they keep on track. And then as you talked about, if someone has a spreadsheet and they want to add the details in and they want to see what the past history, and people who love the detail and then a little bit of complexity allows them to do that. So people who listen to this, whichever of those two camps that you relate to most, just give me the data, let me get on with life, or actually let me play around with this. I want to see some of the insights. It actually allows people to play around with those objective measures at the level that they want to play around with. So that's important. So 3 tools: WealthSPEED, WealthCLOCK, and WealthTRACKER. So Ben, we talked previously about the 3 reasons why we think people are challenged money managers and wealth builders. So it's important for us now to go, okay, we talked about that being subjective. We wanted to give them some objective tools. So I think we should circle back to that now and go, well, okay, how do we address those 3 issues through these. So the first one is around conditioned behavior. How does it address that? Which one of the metrics addresses that?
Yeah, so obviously it goes without saying that Money Smarts from a money management tool would be a lock, right? So rules-based money management system. So you then don't have to worry about what conditioning you had. That's going to build new routine and behavior around managing money to trap that surplus. But if you're talking about wealth creation here, so outside of money, WealthSPEED is it. It's the bee's knees when it comes to a single metric that you need to focus in on. So, if I can see what that is, and I can see some movement in that, and every time you change it, you'll get a little reading of percentage improvement. So you'll start to build up a story and start to build up confidence. So let's break that conditioned behavior. It's a great way in being able to break that conditioned behavior, because it's also making sure that you've got a really clear understanding of the progress that you're making when it comes to WealthSPEED.
So that's with conditioned behavior. With knowledge shortfall, there's an opportunity for WealthSPEED and WealthCLOCK to play a role here, right? Because part of the knowledge shortfall for a lot of people is just getting lost in the financial jargon. It's too hard, too many calories to burn to try and work what this out is. So if you do experience, that's why I doubled back before, Ben, to say, well, for some people, when they hear you can update, input your spreadsheets and that could overwhelm some people. So that's what I'm saying. Well, if that's you, great. But if it's not you, it's fine, because that overwhelm in terms of that cognitive load that's required to comprehend your money and wealth story can be a reason for people to actually not take action. So that'll be able to do that. But also the speedometer and the odometer, Ben, that's like very few people don't know what that means who are looking for this. So grasping those two concepts now makes it easy for everyone. So they can go, okay, I need to know what speed I need to go to, because I can grasp that concept of Perth to Adelaide. And now I can see how I'm accumulating, because that odometer, how many kilometers I've traveled during that time. So those two things really do eat into that particular what we need to overcome.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to look under the bonnet, you'll see there's 13 different gauges and instruments that make up and sum up to the WealthSPEED, and then you've got WealthCLOCK as well. Clear all that away, single metric, 2 metrics, there's your dashboard, get in your wealth creation car, and that's what you need to know. Keep putting the petrol in terms of surplus cash flow from your Money Smart system, and that's how it's going to work for you. So again, for those people who are more detailed orientated, you will see all of those other gauges and you'll be able to then go to work. One of those ones that you want to be focusing in on, passive income. So your passive income speed, you want to be getting that up compared to your working income speed. So it means that you will then have work as a choice, because if you can replace your working income speed with your passive income speed, you are in good shape in terms of how it's going to set up for achieving financial peace. So another couple of little clues about getting people excited about what are these other gauges for those who want to look under the bonnet. But no, there's no problem here. The knowledge is easy to comprehend. We've made it simple and easy to know that analogy of a car. Think about that, and then basically all you need to do, focus on WealthSPEED, and then look at your WealthCLOCK to see the progress that you're making.
So the WealthSPEED gives you a great judge of how good you are as a money manager. So how hard is it working for you? And it's an early warning system to showcase the money you might be leaving on the table. So it's effective reality. It's a reality check for someone to go, oh, I'm good here. Well, if you could actually see those gauges, and you could actually see that you could be doing better, even if you're on a very comfortable income, Ben, you could see that the gauges aren't your friend. So the WealthSPEED is a terrific proxy to judge how you're actually doing. It is a wonderful tool for you to get a reality check. Some people will get the WealthSPEED and they'll be fine, but others might be a little bit surprised by what they see there. So
the curiosity is great, and it should, so again, those people who are already on the platform, you're going to, when you log in and for the first time, it's all going to be there for you. All the numbers are all pre-calculated for you. If you're brand new and you'll go through, my encouragement is to use the mobile version, because you'll get into Opti and that will take you through a guided experience to actually get those results. So that's pretty cool. But finally, Bryce, I want to talk about overconfidence. It's the one I was the most passionate about earlier. It was the one I wanted to come after. And there's, so from that point of view, if you do believe that you're a good money manager and you do believe that your wealth's in a good position, put yourself out there, just to yourself first. It's an internal assessment for you and your partner, but go and put your numbers in there and you'll see whether your WealthCLOCK and your WealthSPEED are in good shape, how close you are towards financial peace. That'll give you a clear indication, what is your passive income doing compared to your exertion, your working income speed doing? All of those are real. And you can be your own judge in terms of how that works. So both the, WealthSPEED and WealthCLOCK merge together beautifully to give you those types of insights.
Yeah, very good. Now, a little footnote to any of our clients that are listening to this, Ben.
Yes.
What if they have had a portfolio plan done? That's actually the second layer of all of this. These are tools to help people in a moment of time to help them have a way to overcome some of the reasons why they're not good money managers or that they need to take action. Whereas the people who've had a plan have actually taken action. So they're well and truly on their pathway to where they need to be. So I know that we have a number of our clients that listen to this and they may be thinking, oh, how does this fit into what I've already been doing?
Yeah.
Well, you're advanced on your pathway. So that is still the superseding. These are tools to help people unlock whether they need to take action. Because quite often people, I'll say it again, don't know that they've got a problem. How can they act on a problem that they don't know that they have? So that's important, Ben.
Problem aware, opportunity aware, wealth tracker for those people who've done plans. That's your target, right? Ultimately, you've got a full simulator, even more advanced than these two financial tools. These are cousins of that simulator. Their origin stories in that simulator. But yeah, if you've got a plan, continue to stick to it. If this helps motivate you, you can still check out your WealthCLOCK and WealthSPEED, and all of your original data has been preloaded in there as well. So it's a really great story for our existing clients who have a property plan done. And yeah, I have no doubt that the property planning team will get questions about, and what does this do to my WealthSPEED? So that is going to come, and that's a great indication for us of that they're really engaged. And once we know they're engaged, their behaviours will be all with the right intentions to be able to achieve financial peace. And that's our mission, Bryce. We're here for our community about teaching people to achieve financial peace. We're taking you on a journey. We're going to keep providing these instruments, these lessons in life from lived experience and from past experience with thousands of clients. We're just going to keep bringing that in abundance to make sure that you can have the best shot at achieving the results that you want to achieve.
Now, to tie a bow on that, Ben, just think about the analogy we talked about before, Perth to Adelaide. The people who have had a plan, they've got momentum. They are moving already towards Adelaide, and they know what speed they need to go because they know what they need to buy and when and how to do that too, and in what sequence, right? These tools are helping the people who are actually currently in Perth, who are deciding if they should actually get in a car and actually make the trip to Adelaide. And hopefully that sort of distinguishes between the two. So,
well, I think it's a really good point. If I could just again, maybe put some icing on your bow. What we're talking about here is that in first version, the gap analysis doesn't come up. But what you're seeing is basically your hourly rate and then basically your odometer moving in real time. For those people who've done a plan, to Bryce's point, is that they go the next level, which is the gap analysis and how all of they've got that information. But it's all about, our mission here is about just making you aware, whether it be problem aware or opportunity aware, and then taking action. Because ultimately, you're going to have to do something today to reward yourself for tomorrow. And by bringing that problem from the distance here into your directional mapping in terms of what you need to do and to allow you to get into your wealth creation car, that's exactly what these instruments will do for you.
So a little reminder of why we're having this conversation today, folks. We are in the shadows of the summer series. We're hearing some wonderful stories of people that are transforming their life, who are actually taking action. And we are also at the beginning of February. You have a clean slate to make 2023 a year where you slay your money management. So the underpinning of that is through the Money Smarts program. But here's some useful, we think game-changing objective ways for you to see how you are as a money and wealth manager. So when we're having this conversation at the same time next year, you'll have had 12 months worth of experience, hopefully with the right motivation, the right tools to allow you to make a meaningful difference. So I do this every year, Ben, on the back of the summer series. I want to set people the challenge right now to say, I want to come on and tell my story. I want to be part of two things. One, making a difference in my own life, and two, making a difference into other people's lives by having difficult conversations, transparent, authentic conversations about what was really going on, like our Mindset Minute earlier today in this episode of what's happening in people's headspace as they try and navigate their lifestyle by design. So first of all, just want to be very clear that we want to set the year up and we want you to take action. We want you to action these. So for clarity, all of the tools that we just talked about are for free. Okay, so all you need to do is go and download Moorr in the App Store, and it's MOORR. You can also go to the website, which is moorr.com.au. You can go to makemoneysimpleagain.com.au, and you can download our book, which will give you an opportunity to log in to Moorr. So we're trying to make it as simple as we possibly can for you folks to actually set 2023 up as being your year, particularly in the face of living costs and interest rates and all of those headwinds that are coming at you. If there hasn't been a better time than now, I don't know what it is for you to get super clear on what it is that you can do this year. But also if you have a system in place that actually means you can be one of the few that actually have interest rate rises and all of the stuff that's coming, you can not have a lot of anxiety around that because you're very clear on where you need to be going forward.
And Bryce, we've met some great guests, and we've also, in our, when we're out in the public or at airports or something like that, we have people come up to and say, I love the property couch, I love the pod. All of those things are real. And we've also had a lot of feedback from people who have also said, I'm trying to get, my friends involved. I'm trying to get them to listen. I refer you to everyone. Just trying to help them because I know we're in good shape. And so spread the word, right? But here is the deal, right? Because these people are the ones who are like, no, I'm good. I'm, the overconfident ones. They're the ones I'm coming after. So what's your wealth speed? What do you mean? Well, have you done your wealth speed thing before? Yeah. So get that network, tell those people, okay, well, and make it, because if you can help them help themselves, from our point of view, it's help us, help them help themselves. That's a great way in which you can also spread the word. So ask them the question, all right, you got this, have you? Okay, so what's your wealth speed? Don't. So that's that overconfidence piece. In some cases, obviously, it's privacy. We get that. But I'm just encouraging everyone to go, what's your wealth speed? If we can get that around the Australian society, that's going to make everyone aware of basically the opportunity here in terms of how they can improve their financial situation and their financial well-being for their household.
Like it. What's your wealth speed, folks? And the video tutorials will be inside the Moorr platform. So there'll be an opportunity there. And if you're not already subscribed to the Property Couch YouTube channel, go and subscribe there as well. Because we'll be having Ben and I will be spending most of this year back in the content seat. Remember in the old days, Ben, when we used to be able to smash out lots of content? Well, we're gonna revisit those days.
Lots more education this year. Lots more teachings
in 2023. And while we're on it, Ben, I'll just quickly say we've got a masterclass. If anyone wants to go and check that out, it's propertycouch.com.au/masterclass.
Yeah, love
it. Go and check it out. We're really, really proud of it. Hey, well done, folks. Hopefully that's super clear on how you can set yourself up for 2023. My life hack today, Ben, is this. You said to me a little while ago, you should check out Google Flights. Do you remember that?
Yep.
And I just I wrote a little note, and then I didn't get around to it, but I actually did try it this week. And so I'm actually a bit of a fan. Google Flights, it's a meta search engine tool that pulls up flight schedules, itineraries, and seats in order to show you the flight prices on hundreds of thousands of tickets, so including taxes, right? So I've gone in there. I needed to get from Avalon to Sydney. I put it in there, and it was a really seamless experience. It searches databases from each airline and the online travel agency to find the flight schedule, seats, and prices, right? So then I did a little Google search, Ben. Probably should have gone to DuckDuckGoose, which is not in the Google family, to work this out. But I did a Google search to go, how reliable is Google Flights? Now, they're probably not going to put high up on the Google search if anyone says it's a bad review, but just hang in with me there. So one of the reviews was it's extremely reliable. Google Flights gets its data directly from each airline. Database. Most times you find an error, it's because of the error on the airline's end, not Google's. So I just wanted to throw that out there for those people. Ben's already tried it, so you're a bit of a slow learner like me. If you haven't tried it, give it a go. See if it helps you out, because what happens is you put it in, pulls up all the opportunities, then you go, I'll do it on this website or this website or this website. So it gives you some options. So it saves some time.
And Bryce, you can actually set it up to alert you. So whenever the prices change, because I'm trying to book a flight from the US to Australia at the moment, it'll actually, anytime there's a change in the price, it'll actually alert you to the best fare. So that's also another added feature.
Bloody Google, they're conquering the world, Ben. There you go. So that's my life hack for today. Google Flights, check it out. So, mate, what's making property news?
Well, mate, it's been a big episode today, and we've got a big deep dive into the property market next week. So I'm gonna hold off on what's making property news, and we're gonna unpack the outlook for 2023 next week. Big week, obviously. We've got interest rates and all of that coming in, so we're going to be, thinking and talking deeply around the property market. So you'll just have to wait till next week to hear effectively a whole episode on what's making property news. What's making big news right now, Bryce, is what's your wealth speed?
There you go. I like it. Very good. Hey, long-time listeners will know what that's code for, Ben. You didn't have one prepared. The new to podcast listeners go, oh, wow, isn't that great? He's going to cover it next week. So very good. That's what's making property news for this week. But, mate, well done. Thanks again to everyone who contributed for the summer series that made it so great for people to hear those great stories. Folks, we want you to go and try and find out what your wealth speed is. So please go and check it out. You can go in anonymous. It is free. Go and check it out, mate. But until next week with the property market outlook, Ben.
Bryce, knowledge is empowering, but only if you act on it, because your future self will thank you for it.
Ooh, 2023, it's got a variety. There you go, folks. See you next week.
Hey guys, Bryce here again. Just want to catch you before you go and let you know, if you're new to our community, there are a lot of episodes to catch up on, but it's really important that you start from the very beginning at episode number 1. Because episode 1 through to 20 share all of the foundational pillars and frameworks that you need to know to get the best out of listening to this podcast. So I'd recommend that you start there, and the little tip is to maybe start on 1.5 speed. Now, for those of you that are time poor and don't have time to go back from the beginning, don't worry, we've got you covered as well, because we've created a binge guide that goes through all of the details and makes it easy for you to read and get up to speed very, very quickly. So if you go to thepropertycouch.com.au/fast track, you will be able to download that binge guide and you will be up to speed in no time. And whilst you're there, I've got a few extra goodies for you, because we have our top 5 frameworks that you'll learn on this podcast, as well as the Make Money Simple Again ebook, which will help you with the foundations of basic money management, so you'll have everything you need to succeed in building your own lifestyle design and getting the best out of this podcast. Now, just a reminder that anything that we cover on this podcast is not considered financial advice. We certainly recommend that you get your unique circumstances looked at by your individual advisor, and everything we talk about is just general in nature. But folks, I want to encourage you again to go to thepropertycouch.com.au/fast track, and you can go and get all those goodies and catch up right away.